They are fueled by an anger that has inflamed generations, downing statues of the Queen and those who went before her.
May be cursed. The Queen's mother was a descendant of the Bowes-Lyon family. Her pre-marriage name was Elizabeth Angela Marguerite Bowes-Lyon, which really is all of the names. While she lived to the ripe old age of 101, her family are said to be suffering a lifelong curse. The curse is said to stem way back to the 15th century, where Alexander Lyon, the second Lord of Glamis, was said to have sold his soul to the devil. The home that he owned at the time, Glamis Castle, is still in the Bowes-Lyons family. The Queen's grandfather once even said that if the secrets of the castle were known to the public, people would get down to their hands and knees and thank God it didn't belong to them. What is going on?
We have her ancestors were cannibals. It seems some 300 years ago, the British royal family ate human fat, skin, brains, blood and bone. Charles II used to make medicines out of corpses. Queen Mary was said to medicinally eat people, and there is some suggestion Queen Elizabeth I may have too. Creepily, when Charles I was executed, people collected and drank his blood. Anyway, it seems the practice of medical cannibalism died in the 1800s, thankfully, although there are some insane conspiracies out there who believe the Queen and her family still regularly eat human flesh as part of a satanic cult ring.
Here comes the Queen. Let's just watch this happen.
Present the ceremony for us today. We're hosting today. This is our adoptive son.
Right.
So this thing's been circling around about the Queen of England
And her husband.
and her husband,
The king? Prince?
the king.
The king. Yeah, he's gotta be a king.
He's a king.
He's a fucking king.
They were found guilty in the disappearance of 10 kids on some hiking trip or something.
A picnic.
In like the 60s.
A picnic.
So they go, "Hey kids, won't you come out and comfort the puppy? We're gonna go to the fields. It's me, the Queen of England, and you're gonna be lucky if you even make it out of here alive."
In mid-October of 1964, kissing cousins Elizabeth and Philip paid a royal visit to a Catholic residential school for Aboriginal children in Kamloops, British Columbia, Canada. William Coombs was 12 years old at the time of the royal visit. "I was an inmate at the Kamloops school when we were visited," said Coombs. "I remember it was strange because they came by themselves, no big fanfare or nothing. But I recognized them, and the school principal told us it was the Queen, and we all got given new clothes and good food for the first time in months the day before she arrived. The day the Queen got to the school, I was part of a group of kids that went on a picnic with her and her husband and some of the priests. We went down to a meadow near Dead Man's Creek. I remember it was weird because we all had to bend down and kiss her foot, and she was wearing a white lace boot. After a while, I saw the Queen and her husband leave the picnic with 10 children from the school, and those kids never returned. They took away those 10 kids and nobody ever saw them again. We never heard anything more about them, and we never met them again even when we were older. They were all from around there, but they all vanished." The group that disappeared was 7 boys and 3 girls in age from 6 to 14 years old. They were all from the smart group in the class. 2 of the boys were brothers, and they were Mady from Quesnel. Their last name was Arnoux, or Arnold. I don't remember the others, just an occasional first name like Cecilia, and there was an Edward. What happened was also witnessed by my friend, George Adolph, who was 11 years old at the time and a student there too. But he's dead now. William Coombs, the sole survivor, was scheduled to appear as the star witness at the International Tribunal into Crimes of Church and State in London, England. But William Coombs never made it to the tribunal. He died of unknown causes shortly before he was scheduled to testify. Reverend Kevin Annett, a former minister of the United Church of Canada, believes that William Coombs was murdered to stop him from speaking out about the royal abductions and other crimes of murder and torture that he had witnessed at the school.
In a nutshell, what happened was I was letting people speak from the pulpit about the crimes I'd seen in the residential school, the murders and that. I also found out about the land deals that were happening where the church was selling off native land to big logging companies for kickbacks. And I wrote a letter about that to the church. I was fired without cause and eventually thrown out of the church without any due process at all. But that one thing led to another, and I began to work a lot more with the survivors after that, the eyewitnesses.
We have the abducted children. Scary.
Yes,
in 1964, Queen Elizabeth and her husband, Prince Philip, were on a tour of the Commonwealth in Canada when they visited Kamloops Residential School in British Columbia. The residential schools are already a bone of extreme tension in Canada. They were part of a wider government scheme to quote-unquote civilise Aboriginal children. Shortly after the Queen and Prince Philip visited the school, 50 children went missing. Some conspiracy theorists say that this was directly down to the Crown. William Cobes, a native North American child who went to Kamloops, said that the Queen made his fellow classmates kiss her shoes. Really?
I don't know.
And then her and her husband abducted them.
Again, ugh.
Some websites even claim that she was found to have been involved by an independent investigation team looking into the case. Beyond the missing children, thousands of kids were reportedly emotionally, physically and sexually abused by the churches that ran the schools there, and in 2007 the government settled a $1.9 billion lawsuit on the matter.
Seriously?
Wow.
She can't be prosecuted. Queen Elizabeth cannot be prosecuted because she is above the law. The monarch of the United Kingdom has always been above the law, which is perhaps why, historically speaking, some of the old kings and queens of old Blighty have literally gone berserk. Even if ye fancy trying to jail the Queen, you literally can't. In Great Britain and internationally, it's against the law to imprison the Queen. That being said, it is possible to overthrow and dethrone a monarch. Once that's happened, or should she abdicate, then she would be subject to prosecution or punishment. Basically, this would be for any crimes that she'd ever committed, even while she was in power.
An English newspaper has reported former UK Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher knew of sexual abuse by one of her cabinet ministers and was involved in a cover-up. The claims come after current PM David Cameron announced a full-scale inquiry into historical child sex abuse by politicians. It's alleged Thatcher confronted the minister and told him to stop the abuse.
Those of you who follow the news coming out of the United Kingdom with any sort of regularity will see that seemingly every day there seems to be news of a new sex scandal, a new scandal involving children, be it on an institutional level, be it coming out of Oxford, coming out of Rotherham, coming out of Oldham. When we're talking about paedophile rings, that in the case of Rotherham, 1,400 children are implied or thought to be involved in a paedophile sex ring that has been covered up by local governments and by people in high positions of power and authority, and it's only now coming to light. And I want to draw everyone's attention to at the moment is the fact that Margaret Thatcher, she knighted an MP called Cyril Smith, who at the time was a very high profile. He's a very big guy. He's weighed about 400 pounds, so he's a very big figure, literally and metaphorically, a very significant figure within British politics, who it was known that he had been involved and had convictions, well, not necessarily convictions, but he was associated with paedophilia and had the hint of paedophilia around him. And at the time, that was specifically brought to Margaret Thatcher's attention in 1988 when he was knighted. A topic we seem to be coming back to with alarming regularity, and I'm afraid one we're going to come back to time and time again. Reports of widespread, systematic child abuse running through every echelon of British society, with a new preliminary report as part of Operation Hydrant, which is coordinating historical and current child abuse allegations across the country. Police forces are setting out more than 1,400 people are being investigated for historical and current child sex abuse. This number, apparently, Mark, includes 261 high-profile figures from the entertainment, political and sporting worlds. So when these numbers become names, when there are names to these numbers, it's really going to hit the fan.
There are already some names out there, too.
There are already some names out there, the most famous being Jimmy Savile. We talked about Jimmy Savile, we talked about Sir Cyril Smith, we talked about Gary Glitter. Famous, high-profile people that were part of, child abuse, paedophile rings, not necessarily all interconnected, but part of a system.
The evidence is now overwhelming that one of Britain's most beloved entertainers, the late Sir Jimmy Savile, was also a predatory sex offender. It's believed he abused young children over many decades, and 2 charities in his name have shut their doors. Many people in Britain are questioning how his behaviour went unchecked for so long, and the scandal is infecting his main employer, the BBC. Europe correspondent Mary Gearan reports.
As Jimmy Savile became one of Britain's most popular entertainers, host of the smash hit program Top of the Pops, as he forged a reputation as a tireless fundraiser, as he was knighted by the Queen and the Pope, he was, it now seems, leading an appalling double life, sexually abusing scores of young girls and some boys, some in hospitals, some in care homes, some in the very studios that made him a star.
They are fueled by an anger that has inflamed generations, downing statues of the Queen and those who went before her. Monarchs who reigned during the darkest part of Canada's past, when those who were first on this land were seen as a stain upon it by those who sought a future without them.
More unmarked graves had been found near a former residential school. To everyone in Ktunaxa Nation and to all survivors, families and Indigenous people, we're here for you.
It is for what happened in schools like this that Justin Trudeau speaks. Places designed by the country's first Prime Minister to take the Indian out of the child. It was a horrific principle. The practice was worse. Over 2 centuries in the apparent care of Catholic nuns and priests, thousands of Indigenous children disappeared. Brutalised, neglected, left to die or killed, then buried in unmarked graves. Human rights groups say what happened is a genocide.
There are children that have never returned home, and we cannot have that in any society, any country around us, especially Canada is supposed to be a first world country, and we cannot have these type of things go on. It's like your children, sending your children to school today and not knowing where they are if they don't return. What would happen then? It's crimes against humanity in our case.
The schools were open until the 1970s. Now, excavation work in their grounds is discovering the bodies of their pupils. In a country which has for so long prided itself on a reputation which belies what is hidden in its past.